All right, great. Welcome to Coach's Corner, my part of the podcast to help our listeners get to the next level. Keep this one short and sweet. I'm really excited, though. It has to do with speaking of tip accuracy, about a negative feedback loop that I've seen when it comes to draw shots and different types of spin shots. What happens is players are inaccurate with their tip. And then they try to compensate. They try to fix that the wrong way. So I'm going to give you an example. And I want you guys, if you're interested, to check out, there is a YouTube video from Mike Page, who runs, Fargo Rate. And he has a video on a draw. And maybe, I don't know, Nate, if we can link this later, we can figure it out. But anyway, he has a draw shot video. And what he shows is that if you look at a cue ball, so you're looking at a big circle on the screen, which represents the cue ball, there is a miscue limit, which is how low you could strike that cue ball before you miscue. So he draws a dotted line around the cue ball. He says, if you strike outside of the circle, you will miscue. But here's the cool part that he educates people on. He says, you can't aim at that miscue limit because players don't hit where they're aiming. Sometimes you hit a little higher, sometimes you hit a lower, but you don't hit exactly where you're aiming. So whatever point you're aiming at, there is a scatter. So he showed, like, say you shot the shot 20 times. You're not going to hit the aim point 20 times. You're going to hit like a little shotgun pellets circled around that aim point of your. So where are you aiming your tip? And then your actual striking is going to be in a little circle around where you're aiming your tip. And maybe that circle is, 4 millimeters wide or 4 millimeter radius, And so then what you actually have to do is you have to kind of figure out, based on your tip accuracy, you can only aim. You have to aim so that the edge of your miscue. You have to aim so that the edge of your scatter is within the miscue line. So if you're 8 millimeters across and your circle, your radius is 4 millimeters of scatter circle, then you have to aim 4 millimeters up from the miscue line, so that even when you hit it a little bit, you're still not miscuing. If you aimed at the miscue line, you'd miscue half the time. So, okay, so you've got the miscue limit, then you've got your effective aim limit. But what determines your aim limit is how accurate you are with your tip. Amateur players have a very bad scatter, so they have to aim much higher on the cue ball when they're drawing the ball. Pro players, very tight scatter, get to aim real low. What this means is for amateur players that don't put a lot of emphasis on the tip, most of their career, they're just slugging balls in a pocket, not even really thinking about cue ball tip placement. They're not hitting very low because their scatter is so poor that they can't aim low. So then when they need to, here's what happens though, is then when they try to draw the ball, they're not getting much draw. So when you're not getting much draw, there's two ways to fix the problem. You can strike lower or you can hit harder so that, you slide across the cloth and the little bit of spin you put on has a little bit more carry. And so what they do is, because they can't shoot lower because they'll miscue. So they figure that they have to shoot harder. So then they ramp up the speed and tighten up muscles and really let their stroke out. When you shoot harder, do you think that your tip accuracy is going to get better or worse? Well, when you shoot hard, your tip accuracy gets worse, which means their scatter gets worse, which means that their aim point on the cue ball has to come up a little bit to compensate. Now they're getting even less action, which means they need to shoot even harder in their mind. And all of a sudden, over the course of months, you've got players that are striking just a hair below center and shooting break shots to get the cue ball to back up. And I'm not joking. I had a boot camp student that came over last month. When I was watching him draw the ball, he would aim a little bit below center and whack the ball in the hole. He had to whack the ball in the hole, and the cue ball would come dribbling back a couple feet. And I'm just like, that is how you draw the ball. And so what we had to do is break this negative feedback cycle, which is inaccurate tip, using power to compensate, even less accurate tip, needing even more power until your tip is all over and you break. So all of a sudden we did the opposite, which is let's focus on really, really, really good tip accuracy and relaxed stroke, taking speed off and focusing on tip, taking speed off, focusing on tip. And as you do that, it is jaw-dropping, the kind of action, the kind of easy, fluid action you can get on a cue ball with a relaxed swing and good tip accuracy. And How do you go about doing that? That's another conversation. Maybe I could get into that one-on-one. If you have questions, you can email me, info@mnpoolbootcamp.com. But what I will say is that you have to learn, and that if you're hitting the ball hard and your tip is all over and you're getting inconsistent results, those would be the clues to look for. Inconsistency and high stroke speeds with a lot of tense muscles. Any of those symptoms, you're doing it wrong. So what you got to do is, if it helps, you can look at the cue ball last while you're practicing your draw shots. Just look at the cue ball and really stare at it. That's one thing you can do to kind of improve, reduce your swing speed, and just, there's other things, but the main thing is at least know that if you see those symptoms, you're kind of jump the tracks a little bit. So don't get caught in a negative feedback loop. Once you learn how to pocket balls, the next level of the game is to really, really work on your tip accuracy. That's going to lead to all kinds of, better cue ball control, and then ultimately more table runs, higher levels of play. It all comes from when you stop looking at the object ball and you start thinking about the tip of the cue ball. And that's a big step. So again, thanks for tuning in, and hope to hear from you guys.